The Haunting of Greenwood Farm. On a dark, moonless night, the Greenwood Farm sat silently, wrapped in the eerie embrace of fog. The only sound was the distant hoot of an owl, breaking the stillness every now and then. Emily had inherited the farm from her grandparents, who had mysteriously disappeared a decade ago. She had always found the old place unsettling, but she needed a fresh start after her recent divorce. The first night she moved in, Emily was unpacking when she heard a faint whisper. She froze, listening. It seemed to come from the barn, shrugging it off as the wind. She continued unpacking, but the whispers grew louder and more distinct as the night went on. By midnight, she couldn't ignore them anymore. She grabbed a flashlight and headed towards the barn. The air grew colder as she approached. The old wooden door creaked loudly as she pushed it open. Inside, the barn was filled with shadows that seemed to move just out of the flashlight's beam. The whispers stopped abruptly. Emily's heart pounded as she swept the light around. Everything looked normal, but the silence was deafening. She hurried back to the house, convincing herself it was just her imagination. The next day, Emily decided to explore the farm. She found old rusted tools in the shed and a well that had long been dry. Near the edge of the property was an overgrown graveyard with crooked headstones. She shivered and quickly left, feeling as if unseen eyes were watching her. That night, the whispers returned, but this time they were more clear. They seemed to be calling her name. Emily tried to sleep, but the whispers kept her awake. In the morning, she found deep scratches on her bedroom door, as if something with claws had tried to get in. Her dog, Max, refused to go near the barn and barked whenever he got too close. She noticed his fur standing on end and his eyes wide with fear whenever they were outside. Determined to get to the bottom of it, Emily asked around town about the farm's history. An old man at the local diner told her the farm was cursed. He spoke of a time when her great-grandfather had hanged a man in the barn for stealing cattle. The man's ghost, it was said, had never left. Emily dismissed the story as a local legend, but the old man's warning stayed with her. That evening, as the sun set, Emily saw something moving in the graveyard. She grabbed her flashlight and cautiously approached. A figure in old, tattered clothes was standing by one of the graves. Her heart raced as she called out, but there was no response. The figure turned slowly and began to glide towards her, its face hidden in shadows. She stumbled backward and ran back to the house, locking the door behind her. That night, the whispers became screams. Emily felt a cold hand brush against her cheek as she lay in bed. She bottled upright and saw a shadowy figure standing at the foot of her bed. Paralyzed with fear, she watched as it slowly faded away, leaving the room icy cold. The next morning, she found long, thin cuts on her arms as if made by a sharp knife. Emily decided to leave the farm, but her car wouldn't start. The engine was dead, and the tires were flat. Desperate, she called a tow truck, but it wouldn't arrive until the next day. She was trapped for another night. As darkness fell, she heard footsteps upstairs. She grabbed a kitchen knife and crept up the stairs, every creak of the old wood echoing in the silent house. On the second floor, she found her grandparents' old room. The bed was made, and everything was covered in a thick layer of dust. But the footsteps continued, leading her to the attic door. She hesitated, but then slowly pulled it open. The attic was dark and smelled of decay. Her flashlight revealed old furniture, cobwebs, and in the corner, a large trunk. She approached the trunk, her heart pounding. As she opened it, she found old clothes, family photos, and a diary. The diary belonged to her grandmother, and the last entry made Emily's blood run cold. It spoke of strange happenings, whispers in the night, and a shadow that haunted the farm. The final entry ended abruptly with the words, "He's here." Suddenly, the attic door slammed shut. Emily dropped the diary and ran to the door, but it wouldn't budge. She pounded on it, screaming for help. Behind her, the shadows began to move, forming into the shape of a man. She could hear his footsteps getting closer. She turned to see a figure with hollow eyes and a twisted grin reaching out for her. Just as the cold hand touched her shoulder, the attic door burst open. The old man from the diner stood there, holding a crucifix. The shadow hissed and retreated into the darkness. He helped Emily out of the attic, and they hurried downstairs. The old man told her that the only way to break the curse was to destroy the barn where the man had been hanged. With trembling hands, Emily and the old man set the barn on fire. The flames roared, consuming the old wood and filling the night with an orange glow. The whispers turned into screams, then faded into silence as the barn collapsed. The air grew warm again, and for the first time since she arrived, Emily felt a sense of peace. Years later, she would still wake up in the middle of the night, hearing faint whispers and feeling the cold touch of a ghostly hand. But she knew she had survived, and that the curse of Greenwood Farm was finally broken, or so she hoped.